Retirement is often seen as a destination, but we believe it's an opportunity to pursue your passions, realize your dreams, and live a purposeful life. Great decisions, incredible lives. Retire with Intention podcast is about more than just money. It's about embracing the things that truly matter, the experiences, the relationships, and the impact you leave behind. Here is your host, John Creekmur.
Well, welcome to another edition of Great Decisions, Incredible Lives, Retire with Intention. And like Stacy and I talk about all the time, it's not just about retiring with intention. It's really about living that incredible life with intentionality, being thoughtful about the things that we're doing, the things that we're thinking, the things we're putting into our minds, and the people that we're engaging with, because that truly is the fabric of life. Those are the things that enrich us, they grow us, they challenge us, they shape us, and ultimately they change us. And one of the great things in life, a principle that I've used over many years, is that living things grow and growing things change. And with that, it's a matter of figuring out what is it in our lives that need to bring about change as far as for growth. And Stacy, I cannot believe that we are in the middle of November in 2023. It's kind of crazy how we have a holiday coming up already.
And the end of the year is coming to a close, and we're getting into that busy season. Thanksgiving is right around the corner as we record this. And I think it's important to think about as we anticipate holidays. For a lot of people, of course, holidays are such a fun thing, and we're looking forward to them. Maybe great times with family or people we love or fun events. But for a lot of other people, holidays aren't necessarily part of living an incredible life. And maybe holidays seem depressing or sad. And so I think that's why it's cool to start the holiday season with Thanksgiving, because it is an opportunity to reflect on what is good in your life. And I think that that's a choice that we can make that helps us live incredible lives as we start, especially focusing on the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things too, we kind of go into that holiday season with a lot of different expectations. And some of those expectations, they're grounded in our past experiences. They're grounded in the people we're going to see. They're grounded maybe even in some things that are aspirational of what we have hoped to happen. And sometimes we go through and it turns out it's just better, it's just more incredible than we ever could have imagined. At other times, it's like, well, that kind of missed a little bit here and there. And we also know I have a number of friends that are walking through even just loss for the first time this year. And so the first Thanksgiving, where things look a little bit different as far as with the people in their lives. And so in the midst of all of that, there's some things that we've learned about Thanksgiving, and we kind of want to actually talk about that a little bit. Right. And then also play that into a little bit, even kind of a little review of some of the lessons we've learned as far as within the conversations that we've had right here every single week for this last half year. And so we're going to kind of pivot into all of that. And, Thanksgiving, it's really about having a spirit of gratefulness.
It is. And also, and I think even just in a larger sense, when you think about holidays, you evoke the idea of happiness. That, we have songs about that at Christmas, that it's the most wonderful time of the year, the happiest holiday of all. And what's interesting is research, there's actually a psychology of gratitude and a psychology of happiness.
A psychology of gratitude.
Yes, there are psychologists who study gratitude and happiness as their life study. And what they find is that it doesn't matter what happens to you. They've studied people who have great life events, like, getting married, and, wonderful things. And if you're not happy before that event, within 3 to 6 months after this wonderful life event, you go back to your normal level of happiness. And vice versa. If you, they found even somebody who's become paralyzed from the neck down, if they were a naturally optimistic, happy person before, within 3 to 6 months, they move through this trauma and become the same happy person they were. So this is kind of a problem for people who want to be happier, because you have this set point of happiness. But then the psychology of gratitude has found that one way you can reset your happiness threshold is just by simply being grateful. And so there's a lot of studies done on this. I've been thinking and studying this for about 10 years now, because this is when I first started reading about it, that just simply people who were asked to write 3 things every day that they were thankful for, reported at the end of the study just being happier in general.
So that simple practice, a daily practice of having that spirit of gratitude. So you're saying just simply write down 3 things every day, that day that you're grateful for.
Right. And I think this went on for a period of a number of weeks. And at the end of it, they actually reported being literally 25% happier by writing down just 3 things that you're happy for or you're thankful for.
In that particular study, they had a couple different groups that went through it, and they had different questions to measure their level of happiness, contentedness, and joy. And in the test groups, what they were able to prove was that whenever people actually wrote down what the things they were thankful for, 3 things every day, that the test group that did that had a measured and marked increase in the level of happiness in their life.
So I think it's interesting as we think about celebrating the happiest time of year, regardless of what's going on, starting with gratitude, starting with Thanksgiving is a great way to start as you anticipate living an incredible life, because things are going to happen in life that are not incredible. But that doesn't mean that you can't have that happy, grateful, incredible life that you want to have, regardless of what's going on.
You know, it's interesting. We all walk through times of different people in our lives, and they go through. And I know all of you have gone through times in which it's kind of that mountaintop experience where you're living life, and it seems like you're walking on the clouds, you're walking on air. Everything is going to the best you can imagine. Then there's the times whenever we're going through really those difficult times of life. And they're just there, but then we kind of walk through regular life. And I know even on a personal experience, our middle son was in a horrible car accident about 5 years ago. And before he had the accident, he was known as a person that just had a kind of a positive attitude in life.
Happy way of living.
And he would always say, you know, he goes through something difficult or a challenge or a trip he was on that was challenging or whatever. But say, how did you get through that? He said, well, I just tried to envision what's the best possible outcome and the worst possible outcome, and it's always going to be better than the worst possible outcome. And so he always had a positive experience in life, but horrible accident that about 5 years ago.
And it was interesting that because I spent a lot of time with him, and he was in the hospital for an extended period of time, and it was really interesting how he naturally would say things like, you know, I am so glad this happened to me and not so and so, for some particular reason. Maybe because I have you, like, Mom, you could be here to help me. And so my so-and-so friend doesn't have anybody who could be there to help them. Or he naturally, even in the hospital, was naturally looking through the lens of how can I make this seem better in my experience.
And it was interesting, the feedback that we had from the doctors and the nurses at that time. They all commented about how in the midst of a lot of pain, quite honestly, and a lot of medical procedures, about how his outlook was more positive than just about any other patient that ever had as far as at the hospital.
And even they said actually during that, of course, a concern anytime you have a major injury is addiction to pain medication. And they said they even find that people who have a positive outlook are less likely to become addicted to pain medication because it helps them deal with pain just by having a better outlook on life.
Yeah.
So I don't know, kind of an interesting thing to think about as we anticipate the holiday season this year.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I was thinking about a lot of different things over the course of time. I think about gratitude and really that key principle of writing down and thinking through some things. So whether you do it at your kitchen table in the morning or you're outside, I know for myself, I love looking at our woods behind our house. It's a good time to sit back in the morning, reflect on things. And I know the last 6-7 months, Stacy and I have been talking about really just taking intentional time to think every morning about whatever it is that's in our mind, but really focusing upon things of gratitude. And that's really shaped my thoughts and has changed as far as the way I view things. And then all of a sudden, then we start to pivot into the 5 key principles that we have to living that incredible life. And when you think about it, it kind of goes hand in hand with this whole spirit of gratitude and thankfulness. And that first one really is to define your core values. What are those things that are most important to you, and trying to write down and think through that?
Well, and as you're writing things that you're thankful for, naturally you're going to find that will help you define your core values, because of course those are the things that you naturally love anyway.
Right. And then just think through that and say, hey, what are some goals that you happen to have based upon those core values? Those goals can be really on the daily, or it could be a shorter term or intermediate or long-term goals.
Right, because you want your goals that you have to be based upon things that you value. And so that totally blends right in together.
Yeah.
And then the third one is listening to wise counsel. And of course, whether that be, of course, in our case, financial advisors who help you with the financial aspect, but even, people in your life around you who can give you input on the things that they see in you. Because I've learned sometimes that other people can help you identify your super core values as well.
Right. And a lot of that really is having those wise counselors help you to define those core values that can help you walk through an appropriate goal setting. But then also as far as on the application of how do you actually apply those core values? How do you live it out daily? Or when you're going through times, maybe we're kind of walking on cloud 9, and times when you're going through a hard time, to have those counselors, those friends you can talk to about, here's what I'm going through. Well, they're able to keep you centered as far as on those core values as you walk through it.
Right.
And
For sure.
I think that next one, Stacy, then is once you've identified that, is really then saying, money is simply a tool.
And how are you going to set your
Right.
resources to accomplish your goals so that they support your values?
Mm-hmm.
And so really, that you are just not viewing your money as the means to, as the end goal, but rather your money is the means to accomplishing your goal.
I know 33 years of working in the financial services industry as a wealth manager, that so oftentimes the conversation really centers around a number. It centers around, here's how much money I have.
Right.
And the reality is whenever that's the center of a person's vantage point, their mind's eye, well, then they do not have that true spirit of gratitude. Because everything's focused upon money.
And I think also, then it's harder to stay focused on your goals when your goal is just a number. I mean, that's actually a whole marketing advertisement.
It is.
There's a company out there that has like, what is your number? And we'll help you get there. But then I guess my question would be like, well, what happens? Like, it's great to get to your number, but then what?
Yeah.
And so when your goal is something beyond the number, then it's something bigger, it's something attached to your values, attached to the people and the places and the things that are most important to you.
And keep in mind, folks, every single one of you is bigger than any number. Your life is more significant than any amount of money, any amount of finances, any amount of wealth. It truly is about those things that are most significant to the core of who you are as an individual.
For sure.
And really the last key principle that we've really been trying to hit on hard is that with all of it is to make sure it's centered properly as far as on a proper, healthy pursuit of good health.
Right, because what is the point of accomplishing the number, knowing what your goals are, if you don't have health? And of course, there's layers of that where we are not in control of every aspect of our health, but some things we are in control of, and being willing to take the steps that you need to take to be healthy. There's another of my interesting studies. And I think a super easy way to work on your health. Again, psychologists tell us that getting outside every day for 20 minutes can significantly increase your levels of cortisol, which cortisol, of course, helps us feel happier. And so I think that's interesting. You could accomplish two things at one time by maybe just bundling up and getting outside and doing a little walk, enjoying nature, and working on your health, and also increasing your happiness as well.
It's interesting, Stace. So many of the things we're talking about here is the last 10, 15 minutes. It really goes along with so many of the different guests we've had on this show over the last 6 months. And I was thinking about, as you were mentioning that, Michelle Cooey, that we had early on as far as in conversations. And Michelle, CPA background and just a phenomenal amount of intentionality, but also experience in helping people as they run businesses, and not just on the bookkeeping, but the tax side of it, the strategic planning side of it. And now she's transitioned into that holistic life coach of people that are walking through change. And how do we have the financial aspect, but also the personal aspect, which involves the finances, the personal goals, and the health, all centered together. It was a phenomenal takeaway.
It really, and it's interesting how much her key points so align with what you love to talk about,
for sure,
as far as addressing stress and anxiety in your life, and how that so plays into your financial decisions as well. And just being aware. And I think that's becoming something that is more, it's okay to discuss a little bit more maybe than it was when we were a little bit younger, which I think is a good change. And I love that she talked about that, as well as core values. That was another huge thing. So I think interesting how people who have a lot of experience working with others in their money see that knowing your core values is such an important foundational thing.
It really is. And kind of going through that, then we have the money aspect of it. And I remember talking to Justin Fitzpatrick, and Justin he's the founder and CEO of a company called Income Lab. It's a technology company, and is actually becoming the fastest growing, highest rated academic technology system in the entire technology space. And as far as on income planning in our industry. And he has got a lot of the same core values personally.
Well, and also he talked as well, we're thinking about the anxiety piece, he talked as well about how so many of the people, and what he loves about what he does, is that you can address the fear that a lot of people have in retirement about living their money. So one of the things I really loved about what Justin had to say, and it kind of piggybacking off of from Michelle, talking about how his product of an Income Lab helps people actually address the fear they might have in retirement of outliving their money, and that he loves the fact that he can help deal with that anxiety, which I think is a common one for people as they think about retirement.
And so oftentimes we think about what are the things we would accomplish in that next stage of life. And we talk about retirement, and I think that everyone has an idea of what that means to them. But the reality is, it's just that next stage of life where we're not really working to provide dollars to live
Right.
on. But now we have this pool of money, these income streams coming from a pension or Social Security. Well, then how do we live out that life to magnify the impact based on our core values?
Right.
And Justin really talked about how sometimes fear grips us.
Right.
And so if we actually have the technology to help us go through and model out what things look like and what happens when the what ifs of the world become reality,
Right.
well, then you're able to actually navigate it with a higher level of confidence.
And then the other thing too that he mentioned in that episode was the idea of viewing retirement as a journey, not a destination, which again speaks to the idea of like not the number or the date we're retiring,
right.
but like this is, you're just moving on into another part of life in the same way you've done at every stage of life.
Yeah.
And viewing it as like a journey that I'm continuing.
Right.
And I liked that as
Right.
well.
Phenomenal interview. And I just think about so many different people. And the other one that stands out to me a lot really is David Roosevelt. And David from Dallas, and he has a phenomenal background working with some of the highest level institutional fixed income managers in the world in New York City. And during the Great Recession back of 08 to 010, he was at home with his wife and their two children at home, and they were just realizing, what are we doing? What are we pursuing, and why are we pursuing it? And they decided to move back closer to home in Dallas, and they started working in their family office. And he has a great story of how they got there, which on the podcast you can walk through. But really, then what he decided was, we have this value system that we hold dear, but at the center of it, we have assets that drive income to allow us to live it out. And so he's actually walked through, as far as from an institutional perspective, how can the average everyday person incorporate income planning using assets as far as a fixed income, and as far as helping them live it out. So it's just the application of it all. And so I see how it came together.
The actual, we're talking about actual financial piece.
Oh, yeah.
Because the financial piece, I'm talking like piece of the pie, like that little piece of the puzzle does have to be there.
Yeah.
And so he's addressing the fact like you can know your values, you can have all of this in line, but if you're not confident of the actual investment or whatever income,
right,
then you're going to have a little you're never going to overcome the anxiety.
Right. And so some of those conversations, they started with those core values. They started, how do you bring it together? What are the goals? Let's set our financial resources and let's live it out. And it's been a really incredible journey. I was thinking about even some of our upcoming episodes.
Actually, I was going to say that too, because I was just working through, reading through the show notes and working on all of the pieces that is for the show that's going to come out next week. Yeah. Which I think is going to be like a perfect culmination of what we're talking about today. Yeah.
Some incredible guests coming up here in the coming weeks, and had some great time getting to know them. And their stories are phenomenal. And also the key principles they're bringing together are so impactful. And so I know everyone's going to walk away from those just with some really high level impact statements. And so it's just phenomenal.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say before we just get into the busyness of Thanksgiving week?
Yeah, I'll say, with the busyness is coming up. And so I know at our house at Thanksgiving, we have the blessing of hosting at our house every year for both the sides of our family, extended family. Anyone in the community has no place to go. If you have no place to go, come to our house. So however you get there, planes, trains, automobiles, so you got to get together. But that being said, it does get very busy. And then we head into the Christmas season, and so many activities going on. And we would encourage you, don't get so caught up in the activities and the busyness that we don't take time to recognize the seriousness of the blessings in our life and the things that we have to be grateful for. And let's really go through this season intentionally this year with that spirit of thankfulness and gratitude.
And literally taking some time for that. I feel like you do get caught up in the busyness. And so, just, whatever time of the day works for you, just to know that a few minutes a day spent reflecting on what you do have and what is important to you, I think is time well spent. And in the end, does result in happiness. I mean, science tells us it's worth it.
Right. So the key point for Stacy is every day, three things that you're grateful for. Write them down, and be great to put it in a journal and go back and look at it over the years.
And you will be 25% happier at the end of that time.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you what, everyone's been great chat with you again here on Great Decisions, Incredible Lives, Retire with Intention. I'm John. This is Stacy Creekmur, and look forward to catching you guys next week right back here. Talk to you all later.
All right. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you again for listening to the Great Decisions, Incredible Lives, Retire with Intention podcast with host John Creekmur. Follow us on social media, visit our website, and join our community of like-minded individuals redefining retirement and living incredible lives. Please leave us a review and share our podcast with others who may benefit. We wish you a future filled with purpose, fulfillment, and the joy of living your incredible life in retirement.